Generational change is coming to Cambodia.
This period creates excitement or fear or both.
Asia's longest-serving leader, Hun Sen, has hinted at handing power over to his eldest son, Hun Manet. Just who is this designated successor?
Hun Manet ban bịទទួលបាននៅឱកាសដែលទៅនៅនឹងខាងប្រទេសខាងលិចដែលលោកយល់អំពីការរស់នៅរបស់ប្រទេសខាងលិច
And will he be ready to face the country's biggest challenges?
Corruption is still very big issues in Cambodia.
បញ្ហាដែលធំដើម្បីឲ្យមានការដោះស្រាយនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាបញ្ហាដែលធំជាងគេហ្នឹងតាក់ទងទៅនឹងយើងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងរួចផុតពីបញ្ហាភាពក្រីក្រហើយប៉ុន្តែប្រជាជនមួយចំនួនគាត់នៅមានការខ្វះខាតច្រើន
Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia and the kingdom's seat of power. In the past 2 decades, the country of around 16.5 million people has gone through rapid development. And once again, the winds of change are blowing. On July 23rd, the kingdom will be holding national elections. An election that the ruling Cambodian People's Party, or CPP, is expected to dominate. At the helm is Prime Minister Hun Sen, who, after almost 4 decades in power, is Asia's longest-serving leader. But that era could be coming to an end. Hun Sen, who turns 71 in August, has hinted at handing over the reins of power.
The CPP has been the only ruling party of the country, and the Prime Minister Hun Sen is the only ruler of the country that most of the Cambodian people came to know. No Cambodian leaders have actually ever ruled past 70 years old. The comrades, the old comrades of the 1980s that walked into Phnom Penh in the 1980s, he's probably going to look around and realize that many of them are either too old and incapable or just passed away, and he's probably going to feel that his generation it's time for his generation to move on, and I think that's probably going to play much deeper, affecting his decision much more.
In the last 2 decades of Hun Sen's rule, Cambodia prospered. The kingdom's GDP grew around 7% per annum during this period. The once war-torn country built up major garment, construction and hospitality industries.
So the economy has actually performed remarkably well. It's grown at a pace that has kept up or exceeded almost all of Southeast Asia. The World Bank's estimate that during this time, Cambodia has transitioned from a low-income country to a lower middle-income country. So quite a lot accomplished over the years.
One key industry is real estate. Dr. Kim Hung is the CEO of Khmer Real Estate, a real estate agency that offers a range of properties for sale and rent. Since its founding in 2007, the company has grown to become one of the largest realtors in the country.
I can tell you from year 2000 until now, land price, some part in downtown, they increased 5,000 times. Let's say like in year 2000, only $1 per square meter. But until now, it can be 5,000 per square meter. We have like clients from Europe, from Asia, and from other countries. From year 2010 until 2015 is the best time.
But there were blips in Cambodia's growth trajectory. The most recent one was brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. GDP growth fell to negative 3% in 2020. The same year, the government estimated that 300,000 jobs will be lost in the tourism and garment industries.
I can tell you a lot of companies, they get bankruptcy, they suffer from the crisis. So the way we can survive, first, we have to maintain our expense. Usually in my business, we have the fund to support for 2 years. Let's say like, if we cannot make a single dollar, we still can survive for 2 years. That's my strategy.
Despite the challenges, under Hun Sen's leadership, the country weathered the storm reasonably well.
They did a couple of things that were truly effective, I think. One was basic vaccinations, that they welcomed vaccines from China very quickly, very early on. So they were able to vaccinate over 90% of the population. They had, if I'm not mistaken, the highest vaccination rate in all of Asia. I think the second most important thing was that they were able to create jobs. They used fiscal policy to create jobs for people who lost their jobs. What Cambodia did is they put a lot of money into small-scale infrastructure improvement and hired a lot of these people. They may not have had any experience in construction, but they were just small-scale projects that could keep people employed.
Cambodia's economy is now on the road to recovery, with economic growth for 2023 projected to reach 5.2%. The present economic progress occurred during a period of relative stability in Cambodia, a stability that had come at the cost of political freedoms after decades of CPP rule. The party was once known as the Kampuchean People's Revolutionary Party, with roots in communism.
The PCPP themselves like to refer to themselves as historical parties from 70, 80 years ago. During the 1980s, under the Vietnamese occupation, the party was basically a government installed by Vietnam.
Vietnam had overthrown the notorious Khmer Rouge in 1979 and subsequently installed a proxy government in Cambodia. Hun Sen was made Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister in this cabinet. He ascended to the premiership in 1985, after the death of his predecessor. Post-Vietnamese occupation, Cambodia held its first UN-backed elections in 1993. The CPP emerged as runner-ups to rival party National United Front for an Independent, Neutral, Peaceful and Cooperative Cambodia, or FUNCIPEC. After initial tensions, the two parties formed a coalition government. FUNCIPEC leader Prince Norodom Rinarit became first Prime Minister, while Hun Sen second Prime Minister. But the alliance did not last. Disagreements flared and the power-sharing agreement collapsed. In 1997, the CPP launched a coup against its coalition partners. First Prime Minister Rinarit fled to Paris, and Hun Sen assumed sole control. Rinarit would return to contest in the 1998 election, an election that international observers say was marred by voter intimidation, fraud, and violence. The CPP was victorious, winning the most seats. Since then, Prime Minister Hun Sen has held on to power, using the same strategy of weakening the opposition in every election.
The last national election in 2018 saw the CPP win every single seat in the National Assembly, all 125 seats. The reason for that was that they, or a court controlled by the CPP, disbanded the Cambodia National Rescue Party, which was a popular opposition party, which in 2013 had come, fairly close to matching the CPP. And so I think the CPP saw this party as a threat and disbanded it on a flimsy legal justification in late 2017. And as a result, the CPP now controls the entirety of the Cambodian parliament, which reflects its stranglehold over the Cambodian political system more generally.
In the July election, the opposition has once again been kneecapped. The main opposition party, the Candlelight Party, has been disqualified from the upcoming elections. At the heart of the matter are the party's registration documents. The Candlelight Party had submitted a photocopy of its registration documents as the party did not have the original documents. The party claimed the documents were taken by the police during a 2017 raid on the headquarters of its predecessor, the Cambodia National Rescue Party. Request to obtain a copy from the Ministry of Interior was rejected.
We have received almost 2 million votes in the previous elections. So the disqualify of the Candlelight Party means that those who support the opposition party in Cambodia could not exercise their rights in the upcoming election.
If you look at the previous local election, just happened less than a year ago. The Candlelight Party managed to win 20% of the popular vote. Now, converting that into a national election, that would be slightly more significant because traditionally the opposition did better in the national election compared to local election.
With the main opposition party disqualified, the way is clear for the CPP to maintain its rule. And there is one more important development. Hun Sen's son and heir apparent, Hun Manet, will be entering the political arena for the first time.
The CPP will win, most of, if not all of, the seats in the National Assembly as it did in 2018. But I think the overwhelming priority for Hun Sen is to ensure political and social stability ahead of the transition of power to his son Hun Manet. So this is a very sensitive time for Hun Sen.
We have this period now, probably one in a generation change, and that uncertainty either create excitement or fear or both.
Who is Hun Manet? And when will the transition of power actually happen? This is Koh Thamar village. Located in the rural Memot district, it is about a 5-hour drive from the capital of Phnom Penh and is close to the border of Vietnam. The village, by all accounts, is rather ordinary, except in one instance. This was once Hun Sen's hometown.
លោក Hun Sen គាត់ជួយប្រជាពលរដ្ឋតាំងពីនោះមកដល់នេះចឹងគាត់មានសម្បូរសប្បាយធ្វើខ្នល់ធ្វើដូចជាសាលារៀនអីដាច់សញ្ញាអញ្ចឹងគាត់ជួយឲ្យកូនចៅរៀនសូត្របានទៅមុខមានតម្រេះមានប្រាជ្ញាសពថ្ងៃវាពេញចិត្តណាយើងវាហួសមិនដូចជំនាន់អាប៉ុលពតណាដែលសម្រាប់មនុស្សហើយមិនឲ្យរៀនមិនឲ្យសូត្រចេះដឹងទៀតប៉ុន្តែគាត់ឥឡូវគាត់ជួយមើលសាលារៀនអី
This is the site of what was Hun Sen's house in his early years when he was still battling the Khmer Rouge. The building is now a school, proudly bearing a plaque commemorating the premier's fight with the murderous regime. In 1977, his eldest son, Hun Manet, was born in the Koh Thamar village, where the boy spent his early childhood. By the time Hun Manet was 9, his father had become Cambodia's de facto leader.
The 1980s were very lean years for Cambodians. The country was under embargo by the West and by the Chinese. It was in a state of civil war with 3 resistance factions battling the Vietnamese installed government in Phnom Penh, which of course Hun Sen was a part of. And Manet would have come of age in an era of poverty, of underdevelopment, etc. However, I do think that his upbringing differs markedly from that of his father. Hun Sen, fought in the Civil War at a young age. He came of age in an era of conflict and instability, and obviously the revolution of the Khmer Rouge as well. Whereas his son, since he was an adult, he's existed in an era of prosperity and privilege.
He did experience hardship. The question is whether those time when he was so young, whether that could affect his personality, his understanding of the people, right? And the answer is probably not.
When Hun Manet turned 18, he enlisted in the Royal Cambodian Army, rising steadily through the ranks. In 2008, at the age of 31, he became a colonel. 4 years later, he was promoted to Major General. In 2018, he attained the rank of Lieutenant General and became Commander of the Army. In March of this year, he was promoted to a 4-star General, the highest rank in the Army.
ពិសោធន៍យើងឃើញថានៅក្នុងអាជីពយោធាមិនមែនគ្រាន់តែធ្វើតែកិច្ចការច្បាំងនោះទេគឺថាមិនមែនគ្រាន់តែធ្វើការជាមួយនឹងប្រដាប់អាវុធខ្លួនឯងទេពីព្រោះនៅក្នុងការវឹកវើជាទាហានគឺទី1គឺវឹកវើឲ្យជាអ្នកទទួលខុសត្រូវទី2គឺវឹកវើជាអ្នកលះបង់ទី3គឺជាអ្នកមិនមែនគ្រាន់តែធ្វើសង្គ្រាមទេគឺត្រូវចេះថែរក្សាសន្តិភាពហើយនឹងការអភិវឌ្ឍអានឹងមួយបាទដែលជាអ្វីដែលជាការពិសោធន៍នៅលើពិភពលោកនេះ
It's very important for Hun Sen to maintain the loyalty of the senior leadership of the army. And this is something that he's done by maneuvering close associates and allies into key positions. And of course, blood being thicker than water, having his own son at the upper echelons of the military also ensures that the ranks remain loyal. So I think that this is, Manet's military career has really served this purpose.
All 3 of Hun Sen's sons played prominent roles in the establishment. Hun Sen's youngest son, Hun Manet, has been with the CPP for 10 years and, at age 40, is Cambodia's youngest parliamentarian. Hun Manet, Hun Sen's second son, was promoted in March this year to Deputy Commander of the Army, second in command to Hun Manet. While each brother can make a case for the top job, designating the eldest as the successor would minimize conflict.
Traditionally, when the decisions made by their parents is always passing on to the role to the eldest son. I think in the eyes of the observers and the public, if another person, another son is chosen, or another even daughter is chosen, then there will be all kind of rumors swirling around of family feud. Even if he doesn't want that post as an eldest son, and there's a much more qualified, a much more ambitious brother who is able and willing to take that baton, that will not be done smoothly, because there's no way people will believe that that's actually is based on purely capability and capacity and willingness. There will be a lot of speculations, and I think just the speculation alone will undermine the whole transition.
There's a significant dearth of trust in Cambodian politics, and I think that choosing family members is one way of ensuring that the people that you promote will be loyal to you.
In December 2021, at the inauguration of a water treatment plant in Sihanoukville, Hun Sen gave full-throated support for Hun Manet to take over as Prime Minister, the first clear sign of his succession plans. The party, at face value, appears to have given its blessings to this pronouncement.
គណៈបព្វជិជនយើងអត់មានវិបត្តិនៅក្នុងការជ្រើសរើសអ្នកបន្តវេនទេគឺយើងបានឯកភាពគ្នាយើងបានរៀបចំរួចស្រេចនេះគឺជាភពវិសារបស់
By appointing his son, Hun Sen also ensures his legacy.
He's 70 years of age now. He's been in power for a very long time, nearly 4 decades. I think Prime Minister Hun Sen is beginning to look to his legacy. Hun Sen claims to be Cambodia's great peacemaker, that he took part in the overthrow of the murderous Khmer Rouge regime in 1979. Hun Sen brought the Cambodian Civil War to an end and reincorporated a lot of these former enemies into the political fold. And so Hun Sen claims that he achieved what the UN, what foreign governments of various kinds could not, which was to bring peace and stability to the country. This is what Hun Sen's myth is built on. It's got an element of truth to it, but obviously his role in bringing Cambodia's civil war to an end has been exaggerated in certain respects. But I think that this legacy of economic development, stability, and peace is really what Hun Sen is seeking to enshrine.
You know, when I was young, when I grow up until now, in my mind, I always remember, I all know that he's the leader of the country. So my valuation for him, he's the best in Cambodia, as well as Asia and the world.
Before he can fill his father's shoes, Hun Manet must first prove his mettle at the upcoming polls. He has suspended his military duties and stepped into the political arena for the first time, contesting for a parliamentary seat in Phnom Penh.
For you to become Prime Minister, you have to be a member of Parliament. Phnom Penh has the most number of seats, and it's a proportional representation system. You don't want to have your own district. As long as the party win enough votes, you're automatically sitting on number one, you automatically earn that seat or get that seat. So it's the safest bet.
With any meaningful opposition dismantled, there should be little obstacle to Hun Manet's electoral victory. The question then is when, rather than if, the transition from father to son will take place.
The exact timing and nature of the handover is something that to which only Hun Sen is privy. Most of the important political decisions in Cambodia are made by the leader, and it can be very difficult to discern what is going to unfold. My guess would be that the handover will happen sometime in the middle of the coming 5-year term, once the election is safely behind Hun Sen, but a fair distance out from the next election in 2028.
And I think everybody, including the ruling party, is actually looking at that, paying very serious attention to what that would look like, how that could be done, what would be the possible outcomes and scenarios and different ways that play out, and that I think play in significantly in the decisions that's being taken now in the country.
Virak Oh, the president of public policy think tank Future Forum, believes that giving a clear timeline will benefit both the CPP and voters.
So the people should be very clear who they're voting for. And that's going to be, to me, is this better case scenario where I think Hun Manet should be an outright prime ministerial candidate. But also you need legitimacy in the election. The people must believe there's actually a real competitive election for Hun Manet and the new cabinet to earn legitimacy and the mandate from the people. And that's crucial for his first few years, 4 or 5 years in power.
With Hun Manet set to take over from his father, will his rule differ from that of Hun Sen's? Cambodia is going through a historic change. Prime Minister Hun Sen, who has led the country for nearly 4 decades, has hinted at a back seat. In line to fill his shoes is his eldest son, Hun Manet.
It's remarkable the extent to which the sons of senior ministers and CPP figures have been promoted across the board, which of course is part of a broader generational shift within the CPP, which has seen the sons, and they're mostly sons, of senior officials being maneuvered into positions from which they can succeed their parents.
The next generation includes the likes of Dith Tina, the 44-year-old French-educated son of the Supreme Court president. He was appointed to lead the Agricultural Ministry late last year. Another one to watch is Successor, a youth leader and Secretary of State for Education. It's widely expected that he will take over as Interior Minister from his father Sa Keng. The question then is whether this new generation will galvanize around Hun Manet. Already, Successor has had to quash rumors about his own ambitions to be Prime Minister.
I think that one of the secrets to Hun Sen's longevity has been his ability to bend with the political winds, and his ability to maintain a delicate balance of power between competing centers of power within the Cambodian political system to keep powerful people happy. Now, it's an open question whether Manet will have the political gifts and the political flexibility and whether he'll be able to maintain this balance.
A lot of the negotiations and the base of power base, are things that are actually done through personal relationship and patronage, and sometimes familial relationship, and the connections and trust and camaraderie. So a lot of that is actually not purely on public support or policies or vision or democratic competition.
The next generation of leaders will also have to convince a very different voting public. Maintaining the status quo may not be enough.
We're going to see not just a generational change with the elite, with the leadership, but we're also seeing already happening first a generational change of the whole country. Everything's about peace, for example. It has been useful and important for the older generation, but for a generation that has not known conflicts and wars, I am not so sure that will sell as much.
Instead, the new leaders will have to deliver on reforms, including the pressing issue of income inequality in Cambodia. Between 1998 and 2018, the kingdom's economy grew at an average annual rate of 7.7%, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. However, much of that growth and wealth haven't been spread around evenly.
I could see that some of the Cambodians who run their own business, SME and some companies, they find it very hard for them to survive in this economic difficulties, and especially after COVID-19. And they are very struggling to make some profits. But in the meantime, those who have power and they are wealthy, they don't really care. And that is the big gap between the poor and the rich in Cambodia.
In 2019, the top 1% in Cambodia controlled 16.3% of the country's income, and the top 10% controlled almost 45%. The continuing concentration and inheritance of wealth among the elites stand in stark contrast to those outside of the capital. 36-year-old Kai Seya is a farmer in Kanandao Trom commune, a rural commune about a 4-hour drive from the capital.
ស្រែមហិចតាធ្វើស្រូវលាងជ័យយើងធ្វើចាប់ពីដើមខែ4មករហូតដល់ខែ11បាទយើងចូលកាត់វាមហិចតាអាស្រ័យទៅលើយើងថែទាំវាដែរកាលទៅវាបាន40បេទៅ50បេមួយបេប្រហែលជា70ถึง80គីឡូ1គីឡូបានជា900ទៅ1000ដែរ
The majority of Cambodians are like Kai. About 80% of Cambodians live in rural areas, and according to the Asian Development Bank, in 2019, almost 1 in 5 lived below the national poverty line. For his rice harvest, Kai only earns around $620 annually. To supplement his income, he also grows rubber, which he makes around $300 to $400 a month. The work is backbreaking, and he wishes for more support from the government.
ជួយផ្លូវប្រព័ន្ធទឹកនិងធ្វើផ្លូវយើងដូចថាយើងបោឆ្លងកាត់អីចឹងណាហ្មងតាមបន្លាយតាមអីចឹងទៅយើងឲ្យគាត់រៀបចំឲ្យបានស្អាតបាតមកជាជនយើងអាចគាត់ធ្វើដំណើរទៅស្រួលទៅស្រែទៅអីចឹងបាទទៅថ្ងៃមុខកូនខ្ញុំអាចឲ្យគាត់រៀនសូត្រកុំឲ្យធ្វើកសិករដូចខ្ញុំឲ្យធ្វើជា
the more that Cambodia can pump into education at all levels, from elementary education up through secondary and post-secondary education, the better. Particularly as now, I think we're going to see a lot of interest in high-tech industries, artificial intelligence, looking for places where you can find good coders and such. And they can be located anywhere. Why not Cambodia, right? Take advantage of in a sense, if there's education, then you need to create the financial opportunities for that educated population to advance. And then expand infrastructure, make it so, opportunities reach every corner of the country.
ហើយយើងរៀបចំជួយកូនសិស្សនិស្សិតរបស់យើងឲ្យទៅរៀនខាង digital ហ្នឹងដោយមានប្រាក់ឧបត្ថម្ភបន្ថែមនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំក្រោយហ្នឹងគឺយើងគម្រោងជួយបង្វឹកកូនសិស្សផ្ដល់នៅថវិកាចូលជំនួយរបស់យើងគឺ1,500,000 នាក់ដើម្បីឲ្យមាន transitional ឲ្យមានអន្តរកាលចេញពីវិស័យកសិកម្មចូលទៅក្នុងវិស័យ digital.
With future legitimacy of the CPP resting on a generation of young voters, Hun Manet has shored up his political capital with this bloc.
ខ្ញុំគិតថាអាដាមហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតគាត់ជាមនុស្សមួយដែលមានភាពច្បាស់លាស់គាត់ជាបុគ្គលដែលយើងអាចយកធ្វើជាបុគ្គលគំរូបានហើយគាត់ជាបើថាលក្ខណៈរបស់គាត់គឺគាត់ជាមនុស្សដែលល្អស្មោះត្រង់គាត់និយាយមិនគឺអញ្ចឹងគាត់មើងម៉ាប់ហើយគាត់មានភាពស្មោះត្រង់បង
For the past decade, Hun Manet, along with his youngest brother, Hun Manet, has been in charge of efforts to expand CPP's support among Cambodian youth, both at home and abroad. Here at Youth Star, an organization dedicated to empowering youth, Hun Manet was on the board of directors from 2005 to 2014.
បានន័យថាជួបគាត់ទៅអត់មានរបាំងគំនិតវណ្ណៈរវាងកូននាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីឬក៏រវាងប្រជាជនសាមញ្ញទេគឺគាត់រុះរាយរាក់ទាក់ហើយមានភាពដាក់ខ្លួនតែគាត់ច្បាស់លាស់មកចត់ពេលមកប្រជុំមកធ្វើការបដោះបដាលយុវជនអីគឺគាត់គោរពពេលវេលាគាត់មានការណែនាំច្បាស់លាស់ទៅដល់យុវជនឬក៏អ្នកដែលគាត់ធ្វើការជាមួយ
Hun Manet's appeal to young Cambodians will be crucial as they make up 2/3 of the country's 16.7 million population.
សង្ឃឹមថាគាត់នឹងចូលរួមពង្រឹងបន្ថែមគ្រប់គ្រងបន្ថែមទៅដល់យុវជនខ្មែរឲ្យគាត់បានចូលរួមឱកាសឬក៏បង្កើតឱកាសនៃការងារស្ម័គ្រចិត្តទៅដល់យុវជនឲ្យបានច្រើនជាពិសេសការងារស្ម័គ្រចិត្តរយៈពេលវែង
Young Cambodians will also expect the leadership to allow more political freedoms. Here, the differences in Hun Manet's upbringing compared to his father could have some bearing. Prime Minister Hun Sen was educated in a monastery, while Hun Manet was schooled in the West. While in the military, Hun Manet attained a Bachelor of Science in Economics from West Point and then went on to do his master's in New York University. In 2008, he graduated from Bristol University with a PhD in economics.
I think the new guard will try to be more liberal. This is why my anticipation is that we will have what you can call a honeymoon period for policy people like us. I think there will be more policy dialogue. There will be more opening on opportunities for discussions on policies, on this new path.
I think most of the son and daughter of the elite politicians in Cambodia are competent because they gain their knowledge from mostly the Western countries like the US, Australia, and so on. So I strongly hope that they will have the same mindset as those countries, especially in terms of democracies, and they will be able to apply all those principles to Cambodian.
But liberalizing the economy could upset the entrenched elite, many who benefited from the country's patronage system. A 2016 report claims that Hun Sen's own family has stakes in at least 114 companies valued at over $200 million.
A successful transition will mean that reform will undermine that patronage system. It's going to require leadership to say there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable situations and decisions that have to be made. Are they able and willing to make bold decisions on the direction of the country? It's only them can answer that.
I think that there is a tendency to assume that because somebody's educated in the West, they will automatically learn about democracy and want to bring that back to their country. But I think history has shown in Cambodia that individuals that have been educated in the West and come back to the country have very often fallen into old patterns of doing things.
Whether he can win over Cambodian youths will be a key marker of Hun Manet's success. In the 2013 elections, the CPP won just 68 of the National Assembly's 123 seats and 48% of the votes. It was Hun Sen's worst showing in 15 years. Young voters were credited as the driving force for the swing towards the opposition parties.
What they want now is far more what their parents want, because they're much more exposed. They've seen the world, they've seen the regions, they've seen what could be, right? And they're probably going to be less patient than their parent.
With the expectations high for domestic policies, how will the new leadership deal with external relations, especially at a time of great superpower rivalry? The disqualification of the Candlelight Party has snuffed out any meaningful contest in the upcoming July elections. With the ruling party all but guaranteed a victory, the cards are laid out for Prime Minister Hun Sen's eldest son, Hun Manet, to take over.
He needs to focus much more on trying to earn the legitimacy and the mandate from the people, and that perception will be the most crucial element of his leadership, particularly in the first 5-6 years. The question is actually whether he can actually do something significant enough to showcase his rise to leadership, that leadership position in the first few years. He needs a mega achievement.
One achievement could be addressing the country's slowing economy. While Cambodia's GDP grew by double digits in the 1990s, it has slowed to the single digits.
So all of Southeast Asia is really struggling to gain traction right now. Exports are down across the entire region, and not insignificantly by pretty big numbers. So in terms of the current business cycle, that's just the way it is right now. It's not quite so easy to get those very high rates of growth once the economy gets to a certain level. I think it'll depend too on whether foreign direct investment can be enticed back as strongly as it was before the pandemic. It's not, that's another part of the economy that has slowed, and there's a lot of competition for foreign direct investment.
ហើយយើងបានចុះហត្ថលេខាជាច្រើនជាមួយដៃគូរបស់យើងដូចជាពាណិជ្ជកម្មសេរីដូចជា ALSEP ផលព្រមពឹងទុករបស់យើងគឺយើងរៀបចំអំពីគុណភាពឆ្លើយតបនឹងស្តង់ដារអន្តរជាតិដែលយើងអាចនាំផលិតផលរបស់កម្ពុជាចេញទៅប្រទេសចិនពីព្រោះស្តង់ដារដូចគ្នាទាំងអស់នៅលើពិភពលោកទេក៏តែយើងអាចយកចិននឹងជាមូលដ្ឋាននៃបទពិសោធន៍ក្នុងការនាំចេញកសិកម្មរបស់យើង
Prime Minister Hun Sen is reported to have very close ties with Beijing, and Cambodia has reaped the rewards. Apart from trade, China is Cambodia's top investor, accounting for almost half of the total FDI inflows into the country in 2021. Cambodia is reliant on their northern neighbor, for better or worse.
We could see very clear that the Cambodian government has been backed by China. So Chinese investor came into Cambodia and they invest a lot in Cambodia, but as you could see, during COVID-19 and after that, all those Chinese investors has already returned to their countries, and we could see a lot of building has been abandoned and a lot of business fall down. We want to see more investment from China as well, actually, but we want the honest investors, not the investor that just come and go.
តែកម្ពុជាយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ខ្ពស់ចំពោះប្រទេសចិនគឺការបញ្ញារៀងខ្លួនថាយើងជាមិត្តដេកថែបជាមួយគ្នាកម្ពុជាមិននៅជាមួយឈឹមតាមឬម្នាក់ទេនៅជាមួយមិត្តគ្រប់គ្នាទាំងអស់ទាំងលោកខាងលិចទាំងប្រទេសចិនគឺក៏ដូចជាលោកខាងកើតដែរក៏ប៉ុន្តែកម្ពុជាមិនដាក់ខ្លួនទៅជាអ្នកបម្រើចូលរួមប្រឆាំងជាមួយមិនមែនថាទៅនៅមួយចិនប្រឆាំងជាមួយសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកឬយ៉ាងណាទេគឺអត់ទេគឺដែលនៅជាមួយប្រទេសចិនគឺគោលបំណងទី1គឺស្វែងរកសន្តិសុខនៅក្នុងសង្គមរបស់កម្ពុជាក៏ដូចជាសន្តិសុខនៅក្នុងតំបន់របស់យើង
I think it makes sense to have diverse sources. One is that you can create some competition, if you will. So, for example, a lot of the FDI goes into infrastructure development in Cambodia. So one can compare who gets in there and does the best job, who has the best quality, who meets deadlines, who does the best job of hiring local labor. In other words, who creates the sort of the best bang for the buck for every dollar invested. And if you can compare China versus 2, 3, 4 other countries, you can see who might be leading, who might be lagging, and also no one country can sort of strong arm their way through the system and say, I'm the only place to go. When there's competition, you have to meet certain standards.
Cambodia's relationship with the West has been more tumultuous. Over the years, Western countries, including the US, have placed sanctions on Cambodia, accusing it of corruption and human rights abuses, charges that Cambodia says are politically motivated. Nonetheless, the US continues to trade with the kingdom and remains the largest buyer of Cambodian goods. Could Hun Manet, with his international education, be better placed for rapprochement with the West?
សំណួរសួរថាតើអ្នកអាចជ្រើសរើសយកចិនឬយកអាមេរិកកាំងយើងថាយើងអត់ជ្រើសរើសយកអ្នកណាទេពីហ្នឹងក៏ប៉ុន្តែយើងជ្រើសរើសយកពីរអ្នកហ្នឹងអាមេរិកកាំងនិងចិនធ្វើការជាមួយគ្នាដើម្បីវិបុលភាពពិភពលោក
I think that Hun Manet will continue to maintain good relationships with China. I think there is good political and economic reasons to do so from his perspective and from the perspective of the CPP. But how relations develop with the West will be determined by what many Western governments are demanding, which is to significantly reform and liberalize the political system.
Can the new leadership, including Hun Manet, trust the West? There's a lot of old scars that has never been settled between the old guard and the West. There's an opportunity to change that relationship. Decisions of the West in Cambodia or against or toward Cambodia has always been reactions to China, not to Cambodia. So I think strategically, Cambodia strategy should be just to stay out of all of it, just to never get anybody to pay attention to us, China included, the West included. The less that people pay attention to, powers pay attention to us, the safer we are.
But any speculations about Hun Manet's leadership must consider one key factor: the influence of his father, Hun Sen. The elder statesman has made clear that he has no intention to retire from politics.
Hun Sen will always be involved in politics. There's no way he can escape that. He's going to remain, I think, as the chair of the ruling party, of the Cambodian People's Party. Cambodian political system means that if you run the party, you run everything. Because everybody who's actually sitting in parliament is actually sitting in the seats that belong not to the individual parliamentarian, but to the party. You're basically a representative of the party in that seat.
On July 23rd, Cambodians will head to the polls. It is an election that could mark a new chapter of the kingdom's history, a changing of guard between the old and the new. But as with many things in this Southeast Asian nation, lurching towards modernity, some things may change, while others remain the same.
Cambodian politicians never truly retire, and I think that since so much power flows through Hun Sen as an individual, we can expect him to backstop Manet during the first crucial years of his prime ministership. And so I think that, having his father in his corner will be a very important asset for Manet as he takes his first steps as Cambodia's leader.
Can Hun Manet escape the shadow of the father? And the answer is no. Number one, he shouldn't try to escape from the shadow from the father, because he needs that for stability and his own rise to power. What he can try is to set a new vision for the country and put forward more systematic reform that his father could not do. He needs to basically make his own path, make his own style of leadership.